Good evening. Welcome, family. Welcome back to Your Mental Health Matters. My name is Crystal Kelly, and I'm your host for tonight. This is brought to you by ONV. So we have a special guest on our show tonight. We got Mr. Sam. He works at Allendale Treatment. And so I'm going to leave it up to him to introduce himself.
Yeah, my name's Sam. Sam Helser. I work at Allendale Treatment, Fort Wayne Recovery. I am a community outreach, and pretty much what that means is I just go out into the community, work with people side by side, and just try to show them resources to connect them to treatment for mental health as well as their sobriety, their recovery, things like that.
Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for being on our show this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we connected a while ago.
Yeah.
And you were telling me some things about what you do, and I'm very interested, and I thought you would be awesome to be on our show tonight.
Absolutely.
Yes. So if you don't mind, we would love to kind of hear your story of how you got connected with Allendale.
Okay. So my story is actually, it starts at the beginning. So I'll start at birth. So I was adopted, born in 1993. And I didn't come to know this until later. My mother struggled with mental health and a little bit of addiction.
Right.
I had 4 older siblings. And come to find out later, they struggled as well, just like I did. But I was adopted to Fort Wayne, born in Indianapolis. And all my life, I just kind of felt like something was missing. Like I had to fill this void. So early on, when I was a child, I was filling it with food, with chocolate, with candy. That turned to video games. That turned to women eventually. And then eventually, it got to alcohol. And then it got to marijuana, and eventually it got to drugs, heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, some of the harder stuff, right? So when you get into that cycle, it's jails, institutions, and death eventually. So you have the option to either do something about it,
right, or
you have those 3 options. So my repetitive cycle was jail. And then, while I'm in jail, I'm going to do better when I get out because that's what we tell ourselves.
Right.
And at that time, I believed it, and I could convince anybody else who I was talking to believe it at the same time. But, I would get out and I would do well, maybe a week, 2 weeks, but then, that hole would open back up and I would want to start that cycle over again. So I'd pick up a drink, thinking, I got this.
Right.
And that all started, with an OWI. I was out at a corner pocket bar, and I was going down Washington Center, and I got popped. But it was no big deal at that time because, I was 22 at the time. Everybody gets one OWI, or that's the lie I could tell myself.
Right.
So that happened. I weaseled my way into a misdemeanor. It wasn't a felony yet. I could convince myself that was okay. Did what I had to do. Smoking marijuana on probation, just doing the most. Yeah. But I was still able to get through it, right? Still had that void there. So, I kept up with my stuff. Eventually, I got an OWI in Huntington County going down 69. They were a little bit more harsh. I did 5 days in jail, 45 days on home detention, a year on probation, but still, I could handle that. There was no real consequences, but at no point did anybody ever say, how can we help you through this process?
Yeah, come on.
What's going on with you?
Right.
They just told me to stop doing that. Doing that. But even with my second one, I could convince myself there's nothing wrong with me. But at that point, I started talking to people who had done that before. Because when you're in that cycle, God puts people into your life to kind of mentor you. Yeah. But it's up to you to listen to those people.
That's right.
And at that time, I wasn't ready to listen to those people. So I kept just pushing forward, got through that jail sentence, did some home detention. But during that time, I eventually found out what heroin was. And at that time, this was back in 2017, they started cutting fentanyl into the heroin. If anybody doesn't know what fentanyl is,
come on.
it's pretty deadly.
Yeah.
Last year we had over 100,000 overdoses. People flatlined because of this substance. And I picked it up and it flatlined me. I had to be Narcaned. I was on home detention at that time, but luckily I was in a different county than the county that was actually supervising me. So they weren't notified. I got away with something. When I should have been punished and given all that backup time and did a year and a half in jail, I got away with, just kind of being smacked on the hand. And what hurt most that day was, I remember it was Easter of 2017, and my family was supposed to come out. I had put on this front because, when we're in active addiction, we're really good at putting on fronts. Yeah. I had put on this front that I was doing well, I had my mom come in, I had my grandma come in, and things were okay. Things were okay even though I was wearing a long sleeve sweatshirt when it was 95 degrees outside. Things were okay even though I was sneaking off to the bathroom every 10 minutes and disappearing for a little bit. Things were okay even though the girl I was living with was nodding off on the couch. But, things were okay. And my mom was worried to sick about me, but it is what it is. What do you do at that point other than just try to love somebody through it? Right. And I don't think that she understood what was going on. So she did what she could and just showed up. So fast forward, I got through that, still on probation. I wanted to get away for a little bit, so I went to my grandparents in Richmond, Indiana. And if you don't know anything about Richmond, Indiana, it's on that I-70 corridor. Yeah. And with that I-70 corridor, there's more drugs trafficked through that I-70 corridor than anywhere else in the United States, specifically that Dayton region. But I ended up, drinking that night, got my third OWI. And anyone that hasn't been involved in the criminal justice system knows that 3 strikes you're out. So I was in Wayne County Jail. I had a $7,500 bond. And I made that phone call to my parents and I said, hey, look, I have $7,500 bond. Can you guys come and get me or no? And they said, no, we're not doing it this time. This is up to you. Like you put yourself in this mess. You got to get yourself out.
Right.
And I said, all right, you know what? I guess I have to figure this one out. So, I woke up that morning and I said, hey, is my bond still $7,500? They said, no, it's $75,000 now. So with a bond, you have to pay 10%. So I wasn't going to even ask anybody at that point. Right. So with that charge, I ended up violating my Huntington County probation. Plus I had to do 18 months in Wayne County Jail. And that was, it is what it is. I learned how to be a better criminal. There was no classes offered. I tried to go to college while I was in there. Ohio University was offering like a education for prisoners at that point. And it was a great program, but I just wasn't willing to do it. I was provided all the resources. My mom looked into it. But I just wasn't willing to do. I wanted to go the other way. Right. I wanted to be the gangbanger. I wanted to be the person who ran the block. I wanted to be the person with the remote control in my hand. I wanted to be in control of an out of control situation. That was the only control that I had at that time. So, I made it through that sentence, and I finally said, you know what? Maybe it's time to start asking for help. So. I said, Mom, I think I'm ready for help. And she said, okay, well, let's start looking. And at that time, she called over 20, 30 places, and treatment is a funny thing because a lot of places will deny you due to insurance. They'll deny you due to last time of use. If you've been in jail too long, they'll say, well, we can't take you because you won't be actively detoxing. But she was able to find this place called Fort Wayne Recovery, and they were able to take me. They were able to get me into the program, and I started that program. And that was the first time I was surrounded with people who poured into me. At that time, there was this guy named Nate Mullering, and he was one of the techs. And what the techs do is they drive vans, they pick up the clients. But he was someone who was in recovery. Someone who had used and saw no way out, saw no hope, but eventually someone gave him a chance, and he trusted that person, and they developed a beautiful relationship.
Right.
And he became someone who other people could trust, right? So I put my trust into this guy. He opened up to me, so I should open up to him. Yeah, I had therapists. Yeah, I had, case managers,
Right.
but Nate was the person I could talk to. So I trusted in that process. I started going to AA meetings because, Nate told me, you should probably go to AA meetings and get around some people like you.
Right.
I started talking about my problems because he said, you should probably talk about your problems. You've never done that before. What's it going to hurt at this time?
That's right.
I was still on probation in Huntington County. I'd served all my time in Wayne County. Luckily, they didn't give me any probation. But I didn't have anything left to lose.
Yeah. Come on.
So, Mr. Sam, I was wanting to know with your use, the start of your use, and then while you continue, was it a way for you to kind of deal with your problems, forget about your problems? What started you on that journey?
So, when I was younger, with being adopted and everything, I was always searching for something. And today I can't even tell you what that something is. It was just something. There was this void in me that was missing. Whether it was not feeling like I fit in or there was just always odd. Like I always felt like I was the odd man out. But, when I was drinking or when I was using drugs, I didn't feel that way. Like I felt like the life of the party. Like I could be anything that I wanted to be. I felt like Superman. But that's why I did it, because then I could just be like everybody else and not have to feel different.
Yeah.
When did you find out you were adopted as a child, or was it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always knew. So my the family that adopted me, they're all Caucasian except for my oldest sister. She's adopted as well, and she's African American.
Okay.
So I was always
so
like,
you knew,
well,
you
probably,
always knew.
yeah.
Okay. It's a little different.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So, that was a conversation that got brought up too, while I was in Fort Wayne recovery, was just family therapy. That's one of the things that they do is family therapy. And that was the first time that, my mom and my dad got to come into a room and, all right, let's talk with a mediator, because we went back and forth all the time, at home, but let's talk with somebody present who can see where you're coming from and where you're coming from, and talk about how that made you feel in that moment. So, I did that, and we made some breakthroughs, and I found out, the reason why my mom was such a, I don't want to say helicopter parent, but the reason why she was so protective was because initially, when I was born, she had gotten the adoption papers, 6 months out from my birth. Had signed them, was ready for the baby. And then the day I was born, my biological mom said, nope, I'm going to keep him. And she kept me for 2 weeks. And then the adoption agency called and said, all right, she's ready to give him up. So my mom told me, confessed to me that she felt like she had lost a child. It was almost like a miscarriage to her that she had lost me. She'd lost me once. She wasn't going to lose me again.
Okay.
So she was very protective of me. And that was another, I blamed her too for a lot of the things that I went through. If you would have just let me do this, if you would have just let me be that person, I wouldn't have to sneak around and do all these other things. But, that was just my manipulation. I just wanted to put it off on somebody else, right? So, I got through Fort Wayne Recovery's program by the skin of my teeth. But that's a story for a different day. Graduated the program, had some clean time under my belt. I think I left that program with 11 months of clean time. I was working at Lear in Columbia City, and they make seats for the GM truck. So, I mean, it was a pretty good job working third shift. Was loving life. I started feeling comfortable in my own skin. I had just bought my first car. Things were going well. And then, I started feeling good about myself, so I stopped going to meetings. I stopped doing those things that got me to where I started feeling good about myself. And eventually I fell off, ended up getting my 4th OWI in Marion, Indiana. They said, all right, you can either do 10 and a half years or you can do drug court.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? I'll do drug court.
Seems like an easy,
Why not try
like easy choice.
Very true. Yes.
Yeah. So they gave me a case manager named Reggie, and I love Reggie to death because he told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear.
Right.
And that's so important. Today I know that someone who's your friend's not going to tell you what what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear.
They don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right.
They want you to feel better.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Or sometimes they have to hurt your feelings.
This is true.
I'm a firm believer that if someone's your true friend, sometimes they have to
right.
hurt your feelings. But you have to trust them through that process.
Yeah.
And they have to trust you enough to be able to express those things to you.
Yeah.
You did wrong there and that wasn't cool. So through that process, I went through sober living, eventually graduated. I met my wife while I was in drug court. I had a child while I was in drug court, but they walked me through this process. But the most important thing was I started going to church. In AA, they talk about a higher power, a God of your understanding.
Right.
And they tell you, hey, it can be a doorknob if you want it to be. You just got to believe in something. But I developed this person in my mind who I wanted it to be, and I said, okay, that's going to be it. That's going to be my higher power. It's bigger, it's stronger, and it's kinder than I am. That's all I have to start with. But eventually that turned out to be Jesus Christ. And so me and my wife started going to church. We actually met at church. And then we had a child, Emmy. She's 18 months now. But, she had gone through her own struggles. But we kind of pulled out together. So now, not only is she my wife, she's my accountability partner.
Definitely.
She holds me accountable.
That's right.
But I also have those 10 other people that I keep very close because back in my addiction, before my addiction, I was so worried about everybody liking me. I don't care about everybody anymore. I'm just worried about those 5-10 people that are going to hold me accountable, that are going to tell me the truth when I'm in the wrong. Because I can't do that for myself. And I know that. I'm a lie to myself all day and night. And if I'm a lie to myself, I'm a lie to you too. So I'm going to surround myself with those people that know me better than I know myself.
Right. That's awesome.
So, with Fort Wayne Recovery, with my story, they felt like they needed an inpatient detox in Indiana for people who were struggling with substances. That's an outpatient program. So they decided to open up Allendale. Allendale is a 28-day residential detox program located in Auburn, Indiana. They wanted to open it up in Allen County, but Allen County was like, yeah, we love that idea, but we don't love it here. So we got as close as we could to Allen County. There's still that stigma with people who struggle with drug addiction and alcoholism. They're criminals. They're going to break into your house. They're going to break into your stores. And that's just simply not true. Most of the people that I know that are in active addiction, they're just hurt.
That's it. That's it.
And everybody's hurt, but there's a solution to that. And all the solution is conversation.
Come on.
How are you doing today? That can literally save
So
somebody's
simple.
life.
That's right.
And it saved my life before. So that's a little bit about Allendale. It's a small facility, 37 beds. It's co-ed. So I just got news last week that we're putting in a full 18-hole mini golf course outside.
Nice.
Wow.
We just built an in-ground fire pit last week. So,
Okay.
there's big things coming.
I see.
But we just want to be a safe place for people who have never felt safe before.
Maybe it's a good idea to not be in Allen County because then people can get away from that. You know what I mean?
Good point.
Because it is a larger, more congested area compared to Auburn. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that I get to do with the job I have now is work with family members. And a lot of the times I don't talk directly to the person struggling. I talk to their mom, or I talk to their dad, or I talk to their aunt, or I talk to their uncle. And being able to provide those resources to that parent. There's a wonderful organization here in Allen County called Mom of an Addict. And
yes, it is.
It's now in Virginia, but that's because Jen Hope moved to Virginia. But it's just for people who have a family member who's struggling, to show up for support.
Come on.
Because we all need support, whether you're
Right.
using, whether you're a family member who's using. Addiction, it's a family illness, so why shouldn't recovery be the family solution?
There you go. Wow. Wow. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, an earful.
For real.
Yes.
Thank
I'm-
But it's amazing to see you here in your recovery.
Come on.
And what I wanted to know is how long have you been with Allendale? And then I guess what is your day-to-day duties in helping others? You say mostly with the family members?
Yeah, so I've been with Allendale. I was there for a year, and then I left to go work in Grant County for a program called CORE. And that was just doing response to the hospital. So someone would overdose, someone would come in with a high ETG or alcohol level. I would just respond and just be there to talk to them because I'd been through that, and then provide them with treatment options. But what that did was it gave me just more knowledge about how to be a better advocate for someone who's struggling.
Right.
So at that point, Nate, the guy that I was talking
Yeah.
about, called me up, and he was the regional business development manager at that time, and he said, "Hey, I've kind of been watching you grow. Would you like to come back to Allendale?" So I said, sure, I'd love to. I'd love the opportunity. And it's actually funny, when I was at Fort Wayne Recovery, if you guys are familiar with MRT, they have books, and in your book, they write 5-year goals. And one of my 5-year goals was I want to be community outreach for Fort Wayne Recovery and Allendale Treatment. And I made it happen.
Put it out there.
But, my day-to-day, I'm going into hospitals, talking with case management. I'm answering phone calls. But I am available to anyone who needs a solution for anything surrounding mental health or recovery treatment.
Okay.
So I'm getting phone calls from hospitals. I'm getting phone calls from sheriff's departments. I'm getting phone calls from parents, family members. I'm getting phone calls from other treatment centers. Just how can we all work together to make really just a better world,
Right.
a more stable environment for these people who are wanting
Right.
That's
addiction
So
right.
is
resources.
it more than a 24-hour? Is it 24-hour availability?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. And then, if I'm not personally available, we have a website called Bare Knuckle Recovery, and you can find us on Facebook,
okay.
Instagram, TikTok. But that is a website where you can message, and someone will get back with you immediately. Me or one of my team members.
Wow. Another question. You said that you guys are growing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think you were telling me before that there's going to be another facility. Is that still in the works?
Yes. So, we have Allendale in Auburn.
Right.
Then we have Fort Wayne Recovery on DuPont Road in Fort Wayne. So there's going to be Allendale Behavioral Health, and that'll be on DuPont as well, across from Fort Wayne Recovery. That'll be a 17-bed inpatient facility, and we're hoping to open that up by the end of 2023.
Yeah.
And that'll be strictly primary mental health. So there will be no substance use requirements. Of course, they go hand in hand. So some
Right.
people there will have substance use, but that's primarily for mental health. And we currently take mental health at Allendale, but we want somewhere a little more suitable for people struggling with primarily mental health. And in the future, we're looking at we have a property in Chicago that we're wanting to open up. And then in Columbia City as well, we have a property that we're looking at for adolescents.
Okay.
Wow.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
For youth. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know we do adults well, but there's so much red tape and logistics with children.
Yeah, that's very true.
We just have to make sure that if we're going to do it, we're doing it right.
Right. That's
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier about just the overdoses of last year. And you said it was over 100,000?
Yeah. In the United States, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
OMG.
So when I was responding to CORE, when I was working with CORE and responding, I was going into Marion General Hospital. I would say 85 to 90% of the people that we responded to didn't even know that they were using fentanyl or ingesting
Right.
fentanyl. And what people don't know, and we had to educate probation, we had to educate the nurses in the hospital. Fentanyl doesn't show up as an opiate when you use a urine screen panel. It shows you have to separately test for fentanyl. So they were like, oh, well, we don't know what they overdosed from because they're not showing any opiates. Well, they have test them for fentanyl. Well, we tested them for opiates. No, but you have to test them for fentanyl.
Right.
So, it would be, the 65-year-old grandma who just wanted to smoke a little weed, flatlined. The 14-year-old boy who wanted to smoke a little weed or, was experimenting a little bit.
Popped a Percocet with his buddies at a party.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Now, with the things that you do in the field, is there like a certain demographic that you're noticing that is affecting more of? Like, is it more of like African American population, Caucasian, or would you say it's just a mixture of all of that? When it comes to the drug use and
when it comes to the drug use, it's equal.
Okay.
However, I would say the Caucasian population has a less chance of it being criminalized, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So another one of my responsibilities when I was working with, in Grant County, I would work with drug court and I would work with reentry court. So drug court are the people that are given a chance before they go to the penitentiary. Reentry court are the people that go to that get a chance after they come home from the penitentiary. If you notice, reentry courts filled with people who are African American, drug courts filled with people who are Caucasian. Reentry courts, the people coming from prison. I think another big part of it is that there just aren't as many resources in the African American community, and people aren't talking about it.
That's it.
And that was one of my objectives coming onto this job, was to open that up.
Come on.
To make those resources available and to talk about it and to share my story.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier, it was easier for me when I had Reggie, who could share and be honest with me, who's an African American man, and tell his story than it was for someone else. Hey, this man kind of looks like me, so I can trust him a little more.
Come on.
And that's what it boils down to.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Wow. So is there anything that you would like the public to know when it comes to just everything that we kind of shared, like you shared this evening? Is there anything that you want us to know, like you said, to be more educated, to be more aware, especially if you got teens or young kids? Is there anything that we should be looking out for or be more aware of?
Yeah, it's pertinent now more than ever. To educate your children on the risks of what's out there. And it doesn't have to be a horror story.
No.
It doesn't have to be, hey, this is going to happen to you if you do this. But, it's important for me to tell my children, hey, if you're struggling, you can talk to me.
Come on.
You don't have to hide it. I'm not going to be mad. I might be disappointed in you, but it's not a conversation that we can't have. There's no conversation ever that we can't have. You know that I've been there before. If you have any questions about my story, ask me. But it's a conversation. If you need help, we're going to search to find you help. So just having a conversation. There's not enough people in this world having conversation without other people getting their feelings hurt.
I like that because I think it starts with the education, and it always goes back to connection, and being able to have those conversations. You got to be able to talk, and without the conversation, you can't get rid of the stigma.
Come on, that's it. That's it.
And then
Are you guys familiar?
Teaching them younger and younger. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Are you guys familiar with Rat Park? The Rat Park experiment. So there was one rat that they stuck in a cage, and they had 2 water bottles. There was a water bottle full of water, and there was a water bottle full of water and heroin. And that rat that was by itself with nothing to do just drank the heroin water until it overdosed. And they said, well, he was miserable, right? So then they took a group of rats and put them in, probably a cage as big as this room, and they had all the tunnels and all the running wheels for them to play with, and they gave them, 2 water bottles. Some of the rats, they drank that water bottle once, and then they just drank the water. And the moral to this story is the opposite of addiction is connection. So if you can just find someone to connect with, you have such a better chance of pushing through those struggles, whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction, whether it's an eating disorder. It's known, it's proven.
Come on.
So just talk to somebody, have a conversation.
It's that simple. So, Mr. Sam, we like to say thank you for being on our show this evening and sharing your story and just being vulnerable, because I know, that's not easy. I know you probably said this a million times, but this could help somebody else, and we appreciate you for everything that you do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's your life, man. So I respect it.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's
you.
right.
Thank you for sharing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if anyone, listening or watching needs assistance, feel free to always reach out to me. Sam Helser on Facebook. You can reach out to Bare Knuckle, Allendale Treatment. Whatever your best route is to find assistance, reach out.
I love it.
All right. Awesome.
All right. So with that being said, we're almost at the end of our show. We have an announcement that we would like to make. Miss Tammy?
Good evening. I'm just kind of reminding you guys of the event that we're having tomorrow, which is October 7th at the Hessen-Castle Library, 3030 East Paulding Road. And that event is going to be in reference to minority and Black healthcare professionals. As Mr. Sam shared here just a few minutes ago, we are still having disparities in healthcare. We need that. We need to kind of spread the word to the young people to get them interested in the health profession so we can better help the rest of the community. And we can do that by getting more of them in the profession that looks like them so they're more ready to go to treatment and compliance.
That's right.
Again, I didn't even say the time.
Yep.
Okay.
Say the time.
Starting at 11 a.m., 3030 East Paulding Road at the Hessen-Castle Library. You don't have to stay the entire time, but we will be there from 11 to 2 in the afternoon. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, until next time, catch us back here the third Thursday of this month. We're going to bring you another awesome show.
Friday. It was Friday. You said Thursday.
Oh, did I say Thursday?
Yeah.
My bad. Friday. First and third Friday.
You can be here Thursday. We ain't gonna be here. We ain't gonna be here Thursday.
Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.